Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. I wasn't born into a wealthy family. I was born to two wonderful parents, blue-collar workers. My dad was a spray painter, had a business in Los Angeles, prestige commercial refinishing. It was never a business that would make my dad a millionaire. My mom was a dental assistant, worked 2 nights a week. I remember my dad used to leave a check for my mom every week for $200. $200. She had to pay the house payment, she had to pay the utility payments, she had to clothe my sister and myself. They had to make ends meet. And I'll tell you, we never took a family vacation my entire life because we could never afford it. But my sister and I were smothered in love, and my parents made the commitment that they would do everything in their power to make sure that we had a better life than they did. And boy, did they. My mom is a travel agent, worked her tail off, putting me through the USC School of Pharmacy, which was not a cheap university to go to, left me with no debt. My dad couldn't make any contributions because he barely kept the food on the table. My money ran out when I went to UCI as an undergraduate and called my grandma. Asked her if I could live with her in Los Angeles so I could transfer to UCLA because I couldn't afford the housing on campus. And she said yes. My grandfather had just passed away 7 years before. He was an immigrant in this country from Russia, sold shoes, worked for multiple shoe stores to save enough money to open his own shoe store. Opened Edwards' famous brand shoes, and it was now the Santa Monica Promenade. And I'll never forget going to work with my grandpa on Saturdays. We couldn't afford to go away, so we went to Grandma and Grandpa's house on the weekends, and my grandfather would take me to lunch. I can't tell you the thrill that I got to be with that man who taught me about the importance of going to school and the importance of getting an education. As I went through my drawers at my grandmother's house as I was moving in, I was going through drawers and I saw a hairbrush and had my grandfather's hair. I said, Grandma, what are you keeping this for? Grandpa's been dead for 7 years. She goes, well, it's sentimental, but it's time to get rid of it. And then as I went through the drawer to empty it so I could put my toiletries in there, I found his false teeth. I said, Grandma, really? I mean, false teeth? It's time. Threw it in the trash can. She said, get rid of it. But as I put the teeth into the trash can, I kind of saw a bright sheen. And I turned the teeth over, and it was a solid gold bridge that my grandfather had on his false teeth. And I said to my grandmother, I said, you know, I would love to have that if you don't mind. I've got a friend that's a jeweler that I'd like to have him melted down because my grandfather taught me such great lessons about life and business that I'd like to wear it around my neck and have my Grandpa Eddie with me all the time. My friends, I have that gold nugget around my neck. My grandfather came from nothing, made something out of himself. I got through pharmacy school and I wanted to follow my grandfather's recommendations. So when I graduated pharmacy school, I didn't work 1 job. I didn't work 2 jobs. I didn't work 3 jobs. I worked 4 jobs. And I got a W-2 for 1, and I was an independent contractor for 3. And I saved up enough money to buy fixtures from pharmacies that went out of business. Those of you that are old enough to remember a store called Gemco or a store called Fedco. I wanted to open a chain of pharmacies, and I bought stores, fixtures, and stored them in storage until I could save enough money to open my first pharmacy. My first pharmacy was in 1983, and I'm very proud to say that I've been the proud owner of 6 pharmacies, and I've done well, and I'm very proud that I've done well. I feel like I've achieved the American dream, and like my parents wanted me to have a better generation for myself, I want my children to have a better generation than I had. Why am I bringing all this up? Is because there needs to be opportunities in the state of California. And we're seeing these entrepreneurial opportunities disappear right before our eyes. I understand that we have a Supreme Court decision, and I understand that we need to do what we can to comply. But my friends, we are the lawmakers in the state of California. And it is the laws that we make on the Senate floor that are interpreted by the courts of this land. And while many of you have said that this is not about picking winners and losers, I have to strongly disagree that I think we have. You know, I've mocked unions over the past week and complaining about the influence that labor has over our decisions in the state of California. I want you to know that 2 of the pharmacies that I owned, I unionized. I made them union pharmacies because I was treated very well as a union pharmacist that worked for Thrifty Drug, now Rite Aid, that worked for Gemco when I worked for them as an employee. I got great benefits. I got great wages. And I wanted to make sure that I had great people working for me that were well treated. But my friends, this bill is the Union Caucus's main event of the year. We've all heard the protests. We all have seen the horrible effects that passing this bill will have on the California economy. By basically ending the independent contractor model for hundreds of thousands of hard-working men and women in the state of California, we're telling families you can no longer work on your terms and your conditions. The statistics in the state of California, my friends, are not good. The U.S. Census data, U.S. Census came out today with data showing that we have 18.2% poverty in the state of California. 1 in 6 people in the state of California live in poverty. Guess what? We're second only to Washington, D.C., that has 2/10 of a higher percentage of poverty than we do. My friends, we're not doing something right in the state of California. And I've always believed in the 27 years that I've been in office that we need to take an entrepreneurial approach to running government. More regulations isn't always good. We want to protect our workers. We want to protect people working in their working environments. But unfortunately, I have strong concerns, even in my compounding business, that as the regulations get tougher and tougher, there may be a time that we may have to close our doors in California and worry about access for people that truly need compounded medications. Ladies and gentlemen, I have concerns about the process. If I could pose a question to the floor jockey, please.
Will you accept the question?
I'll try, yes.
Thank you, my friend from Los Angeles. And I have in front of me, if I can display this, it's a AB5 exemption request form. It was downloaded, CalMatters, California Labor Federation form given to groups seeking exemptions. I don't know if I can bring it to you or if you can see it. Does that sound familiar to you?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yes, I do.
Please.
Who did this application go to to garner the exemptions that have been so granted under this bill?
Anyone who requested an exemption.
Okay.
Who evaluated the potential to get an exemption?
I don't know all those details, but my understanding is that,
I don't mind if you whisper to the true author.
If you don't know the answer to the question, you're not under oath and you're not in a court of law. The question asks you if you know. If you don't, you can just simply say that, so don't feel compelled.
okay, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, I do know the answer because, unfortunately, it says in the bottom left-hand corner of the form, the AFL-CIO. So I can only opine that these applications were reviewed by a labor union, not necessarily primarily by the author, to deliver these exemptions.
Oh.
I mean, you would think that if the labor unions were really going to pick who's getting exemptions, who's not getting exemptions, they at least would take their name off the application form, but in the best interest of transparency, I guess it's good that we know. Now, I haven't been in the state capitol as long as many of you, but I have to tell you, I find it very offensive that the author's office has turned this bill into a Christmas tree for labor unions that might as well have an office right here in the state capitol. I might be naive, but I think it's absolutely inappropriate to have documents handed out to people requesting an exemption for AB5 that are plainly prepared by organized labor, the AFL-CIO, to be specific. But even though the process that got us here stinks, I think the bill itself is fatally flawed. AB5 will mean the end of the independent contractor status for hundreds of thousands of Californians. Supporters will argue that this bill protects workers. But what about the franchise owners who will lose their franchises and then have to fire the workers who depend on their jobs to feed their families? What about the man or the woman who works a few hours on the weekend for Uber or Lyft or DoorDash to make a few bucks on the side to make ends meet? I have tenants that work for Uber and Lyft. A couple of them make over $150,000 a year that do a great job of supporting their families, that work when they want to work and don't work when they don't want to work. It's been a great model for single moms, for single dads, for people that need to make a few extra bucks so they can feed their kids, put their kids in Pop Warner football, Little League baseball. Or what about the trucker we've heard so much about today, who spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy their own truck so they could decide what loads to haul and what jobs to take? If this bill goes through and they have to become employees of large trucking companies, what do you think they're going to get for their trucks? You think they're going to get top value for it? They'll be lucky if they can sell the trucks for what they owe. By requiring these people to become employees, they will become likely former employees. The author and supporters of this bill say that they're trying to protect people from being exploited. Supporters are claiming to be fighting for people that make the least, the minimum wage. But my friends, let me be clear. In this case, the minimum wage is not $10 an hour, it's not $15 an hour. It's zero. That's right, because a person without a job makes zero. And there will be many jobs that are going to be lost with your broad brush aye vote on AB5. Just consider a few of the people that will be harmed by this bill going into effect. The truckers who want to decide what they haul, when they haul it, will be shut down unless they want to become employees, something many don't want to do. The single father who wants to make a few extra bucks working nights and weekends won't be able to work for a company like Uber or Lyft because big labor wants to have dad be a member of the union. Physical therapists who help patients at reasonable rates won't be able to find work unless they become full-time employees of a hospital or a rehab center, thereby losing the flexibility that brought many of them into the profession. Now, I don't blame the people who felt forced to cut their own special deals with big labor and this author. I don't blame that the architects got their carve-out from this poorly designed bill. I don't blame investment advisors who made sure they weren't going to be sued by greedy trial lawyers looking to make a quick buck. I don't fault the realtors who made sure they didn't get caught in the labor union spider web spun by the black widow of public policy. Nor do I think it's a bad thing that the 28 other special interest groups who paid their toll to the labor union bosses got the exemptions, although I'm not sure what it cost them, but I'm sure it wasn't free. There's a lot of reasons to vote no on this bill, but perhaps the biggest reason is it opens the door to thousands of frivolous lawsuits targeting business owners and those that have been playing by the rules. Here's what I have to presume is the main reason for the bill. Under AB5, a driver for Uber will be able to file a lawsuit against Uber to collect 4 years of back pay under the provisions of the law many of you vote for today. Many of those drivers who made over $100,000 a year working for these companies. This retroactive clawback for wages that also comes with massive penalties will force many companies to close entirely. This bill opens the door for aggressive trial lawyers to target businesses, much like currently goes on with lawyers targeting businesses with frivolous ADA lawsuits. We're opening the door to a duplication of this horrible, frivolous filing of lawsuits against small business people that can ill afford to pay the legal fees. So we all know what's going to happen. The trial lawyers are going to see business using independent contractors. The trial lawyers call one of the contractors and gets him or her to agree to some free money to file a lawsuit. The trial lawyer sends a demand letter to the business saying a lawsuit is going to be filed unless a settlement agreement can be made. The trial lawyer then gets half of the settlement, and the independent contractor gets the other half, minus the expenses of filing the lawsuit and any other fees paid by the trial lawyer. When are we going to learn that these shakedown lawsuits shouldn't be tolerated, let alone be encouraged by this legislature? As long as the big labor unions and trial lawyers keep paying rent to control this legislature, I'm guessing the answer is never. So in conclusion, Madam President, AB5 is a way to force people out of careers that they love and careers that they enjoy. It's a way to force people into labor unions they frankly don't want to join. It's a way to give trial lawyers new targets now that they're running out of ADA lawsuits to file. It's a way to send a message that entrepreneurship and innovation is dead in California. Labor unions who own this legislature are desperate to replenish their political war chest in light of the Janus decision that said people don't have to pay for political speech they don't agree with. Most shockingly, this bill makes a mockery of this legislature, having one of America's biggest labor unions in transparent control of deciding who gets exempt from this bill is frankly offensive. Having an organized labor boss deciding what's best for 85% of the people in California is just plain wrong. People should be able to work where they want. People should be able to work for who they want to. People should be able to live free and not be told to do so by big union bosses in smoke-filled rooms.
Senator Stone, let's wrap it up and stay on message, or I shouldn't say stay on message. Stay on the bill, if you would, sir, and let's wrap it up, please.
For those reasons, I ask you to vote no on AB5.